Well, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to you from wherever you are zooming in from today. I'd like to thank the Alpine Garden Society for reaching out and asking me to talk to you today about the Alpine Flora of Australia. I'm certainly no academic on the subject, but I'm just passionate about it. So without further ado, let's get into it. By the way, in this first picture you can see we've got Leucochrysum alpinum and Craspida Max Grayi with a blanket of summer snow just below the summit of Mount Kosciusko, which is the highest point in Australia. A couple of questions there. Is there such a thing as alpine flora in Australia? Or is it just beautiful beaches and crazy animals? Well, yes, we've got plenty of beautiful beaches and yes, plenty of crazy animals. But the simple answer is yes, we do. It's probably fair to say that it's probably not as well known and not as showy as some of the alpine flora from around the world. Although I think it does have a beauty all of its own, which makes it special. And hopefully you'll see some of this evening. This scene here really appeals to me, especially the interplay between the snow gums and the small alpine herbs. This habitat is known as snow gum woodland. At a quick glance, we can see Stylidium, which is the trigger plant, the purple flowers there. There's Salmisia, Kunzia, Olearia, Hovia, Eucalyptus, Trachymene, and Tasmania. So it's quite a diverse habitat. And this scene is quite common in the Australian Alps, where the tree line starts to end and they disappear and the herbs take over. This slide shows us where the alpine areas are located and their size roughly. In the left-hand photo, starting from the top right-hand corner, it starts in the Australian Capital Territory, the ACT, moving into New South Wales, then down into Victoria. The little star there in the left-hand photo is actually where I live, which is quite close to most of these areas, which is very handy for me. In the right-hand photo, the one of Tasmania, you can see the brown patches are probably the alpine areas, which the elevation is probably about 800 metres. And if you look at that information on the screen there, the total area of the alpine and subalpine environment is 11,700 square kilometres. And if you break it down, there's more in Tasmania than what there is on the mainland. And the combined percentage of all this is 0.15% of Australia is alpine. So not a lot of alpine area. And if you are wondering, yes, we do have snow, we do have ski lifts and even resorts. The season normally runs from mid-June through to mid-late August, and in a good year into mid-September or early October. This is just a picture at Falls Creek Alpine Resort, which is about 70 minutes from me. Looking at some of the highest points we have on the Australian mainland, not very high compared to many other regions in the world, but that's what we've got. And with this continent that's been separated from other land masses for a long time and having the oldest soils in the world, it has produced a somewhat unique flora, not just in the alpine areas, but right throughout Australia. Winter in the Alps is normally from June through to August, with snow during this period, although it can start in May or earlier and continue into September, with the last snow normally gone by late September or early October. And of course, these are just averages. Snow patches in the higher peaks around Mount Kosciusko can persist right throughout the summer. And as with any alpine weather, bad weather with snow can fall at any time of the year. We recently encountered this a few weeks ago on a planned hike of the main range and Mount Kosciusko, which we had to change because of blizzard conditions and snow. And this photo was taken then. I won't focus too much on the weather or temperature, but tonight, as these are very variable and change all the time, I'm just more interested in showcasing to you the flora and some of the habitat it calls home. This photo is just of Ram's Head in the Kosciusko National Park. And in that list there, you can see that Mount Kosciusko is the highest point in the country at 2228 metres, and Townsend 2209. And then in Victoria, we've got Mount Bogong, which is the highest point here, 1986. And there's a few others there. The best time to visit for a wildflower display is from December through to February. Most prolific late December into mid-January. The species diversity is quite large, and depending on what areas you include, it can be higher. So for example, in New South Wales, above the tree line, we're looking at about 200 alpine species. But if you include the subalpine areas, which just verge on the tree, between the alpine and the subalpine, where the tree line sort of changes, it's most likely to be a lot more. A very similar scenario in Victoria. And between these two areas, they probably share 80% of the species, with the rest 20% endemic to each state. This would just have a nice scene at Dead Horse Gap Track, Thredbo, which is in the Kosciusko National Park. Just showing you some of the geology around Thredbo and the Snowy Mountains. Low herb fields, some Salmisia flowering, and plenty of granite rock. This is Mount Bogong, which is the highest point in Victoria, with a little dusting of snow in early December a few years ago. This peak can be seen from my local area, which is nice to see occasionally. The peak there is in the sunshine, which is more like a half dome. Now we'll get into some of the flora. As I said, this is Leucochrysum alpinum, also known as the alpine sunray. It's a perennial herb to 50 centimetres when flowering. The leaves in the right-hand lower photo, you can see a whitish woolly. The flower heads are 2 to 5 centimetres in diameter and normally flowering between December and February. This lovely alpine is restricted to the higher peaks of the New South Wales and Victorian Alps, usually between 1,500 and 2,100 metres, and usually on shallow soils derived from basalt, granite or sedimentary material. This is quite a stunning little alpine, which we saw just a few weeks ago in the middle of February. I was telling Raz just before that there was an unseasonal dump of snow. I didn't think I was going to get to see anything, but I was very pleased to see the alpine sunray poking through the snow. This is another beauty, Psychrophylla intraloba, Cinnamon caltha intraloba. There's still a little bit of confusion about the name, but I'll use the name used by the local authorities here. It's also known as the alpine marsh marigold. It's a perennial herb with leaves in a rosette formation. The flowers are sessile, white or pink, and sweetly scented. It's found in the higher ranges of Victoria and New South Wales, and usually flowering at the edges of snowdrifts as the snow melts, or even under the snow, it will start flowering. Can be seen in large quantities, forming colonies in the right conditions. And in the lower right-hand photo, you can see the seed heads, which actually elongate when maturing to a good 5 centimetres high above the foliage. Quite a stunning alpine, this one. And on the same mould as stunning alpines is the anemone buttercup, Ranunculus anemonius. This is a beautiful threatened species. It has leathery basal leaves, and the upper stem leaves are heavily dissected, as you can see there. The flowers are white, 2.5 to 6 centimetres in diameter, with between 15 and 35 petals. It's only found in the alpine herb fields of subalpine and subalpine woodlands on the Kosciusko plateau, often in areas with prolonged snow cover, flowering during summertime. A view of the highest points in Australia. Excuse me. I'll just say from here you can see Mount Kosciusko, and I'll put a little laser pointer on there. There's this little bump right behind here. You can see the walking track there on the left-hand side. As you can imagine, a lot of people want to get to the highest point of places. And due to the amount of people that walk along here, we have an elevated metal grid walking track, which is designed to protect the delicate alpine habitat, which is a good thing. Here we have Stackhausia pulvinaris, also known as the alpine Stackhausia. It's a mat-like perennial, about 3 centimetres high and up to 20 centimetres wide. Although it can be in groups forming mats 3 metres in diameter, and looks quite stunning when in that environment. Fragrant subsessile lemon yellow flowers are borne on lots of short, intricate branches. It's found in the alpine herb fields and subalpine grasslands, usually in small depressions that are inundated following snow melt. Flowers from November through into January, and it's found in all the 3 main alpine areas of Australia: New South Wales, Victoria, and Tasmania. Euphrasia collina subspecies diverse at colour, also known as the purple eyebright. It's a very showy herb, about 15 to 30 centimetres in height, flowering from January through February, and is found in the alpine herb fields and alpine heath and dry alpine grasslands throughout the snowy mountains in New South Wales and in subalpine eucalyptus woodland in Victoria. It's usually quite prolific as well. Here we have Ranunculus eclairiensis. It's a rare endemic to Victoria. It occurs in alpine grassland and open snow gum land, open snow gum woodland, mainly near Mount Hotham, Mount Lock, Mount Feathertop, and Mount Bogong. Growing to 30 centimetres in height, the flowers about 1.5 to 3 centimetres with glossy yellow petals, usually during November through to January. Here we are on Mount Mackay in Victoria, looking towards Mount Feathertop and Mount Hotham. Mount Feathertop being the highest point just to the right of centre of the photo. Of note in this view are the large silvery mats just in the foreground, which are Salmisia fujioniformis. Which look like this when flowering. It's a different population from the last photo, but you get the general idea that's quite prolific. It's the most widespread Salmisia in Victoria, and it occurs in subalpine and alpine herb fields, heaths, sphagnum bogs, and subalpine woodlands. It is very variable at any site in its overall dimensions, Leaves are normally 3 to 25 centimetres in length by 0.5 to 8 millimetres wide. It's olive green to grey green in colour, with the underneath surface being very white and woolly. The flowering scape's woolly as well and white. Grows to about 40 centimetres tall. The flower head's 2.5 to 4 centimetres in diameter. In that usual Asteraceae type flower with the white florets and yellow disc florets. This is also found in New South Wales. It's quite lovely. It's another snowfield in Victoria called Mount Hotham. Just looking across the alpine valleys to give you a sense of what it looks like. Amongst the herb fields here, there's Salmisia and Craspedia, and I think you can just see there's some Craspedia flowering still in the foreground. It's lovely Primula ligustrina. This lovely shrub is found in subalpine and alpine areas above 1400 metres, usually in snow gum woodland right across Victoria, New South Wales and Victoria, and ACT, sorry. It grows to between 0.2 and 1.5 metres tall and has a reddish or purplish involucral bracts, which you can see behind the flowers there, with a terminal inflorescence with many white flowered head, looking like a pom-pom of sorts. This is normally flowering between December and January. It's quite beautiful to see. This is the carpet heath, so known as Pentachondra pumila, in the Ericaceae family. I have many favourites, and this is up there with them. This is prostrate to decumbent mat forming shrub, no more than 10 centimetres high and up to 3 metres plus in diameter. As you can see there, it forms massive mats. The leaves are crowded and are only 3 to 6 mil long by 0.5 to 2 mil wide. White flowers about 4 mil in diameter, and normally flowering between November and January. Plants in flower will often have ripe fruit present from last season, as the fruit sets the previous year, but overwinters on the plant in an unripe green state before ripening the following summer. So you get this very beautiful effect of red berries and white flowers each year. Can be found in the high Alps in moist open grasslands or heathland habitats in Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania and New Zealand. Wallenbergia gloriosa, also called the royal bluebell. A nice little perennial with flowering stems to 30 centimetres high, which hold a beautiful upward facing campulate flower in a rich purple blue colour. It's common in heathland, woodland and tall forest habitats above 1500 metres across most of the high country of Victoria and New South Wales. More often than not, it's found on rocky ground in those habitats. Brachyscome rigidula. Another beautiful little plant, also known as the leafy daisy. It's an ascending to sprawling herb or subshrub to 30 centimetres high. The flowers range from white to mauve and are normally flowering from November through into February. It's found on rocky herb fields and shrublands in alpine and subalpine grasslands in Victoria, New South Wales, the ACT and Tasmania. And again, it's normally on those rocky habitats, which you can see there. Here's a view of some of the high country in Victoria. We look at Mount Feathertop, which is the second peak from the right. The track you can see on the left is known as the Razorback track that runs for 11 kilometres from the main road along the ridge to the summit of Mount Feathertop. It's a very popular walk, which I've done several times. Mount Buffalo is a raised plateau, which you can see in the distance in about the middle of the photo. And we'll see more about this mountain a bit later. That's just a view from Mount Feathertop, which is quite lovely. Another one of my favourite plants is Euartia nubigena, also known as the silver Euartia. It's a silvery mat forming herb to 50 centimetres wide or more, and only about 1 or 2 centimetres tall. The leaves are sessile, 4 to 7 mil by 1 to 2 mil, so quite small leaves, silvery in colour. The flowers are also sessile and only 4 to 8 millimetres in diameter. You have a disc floret with purplish colour, with the outer bracts being white. This lovely mat is confined to the higher parts of the Bogong High Plains and adjacent areas in Victoria, New South Wales, and it's often found on low-growing herb fields on rocky ground, which you can see there. It's very rocky at this location at Mount Hotham. And this is a definite favourite of mine. This Olearia frosty eye. It's also known as the Bogong daisy bush. It's a beautiful small shrub, 40 to 80 centimetres in height, with branchlets and leaves densely covered by stellate hairs, giving the leaves a grey-green appearance, and they're grey-greeny colour above and white-grey below. The flowers consist of 30 to 80 ray florets, mauve or pink in colour, with your disc florets being yellow-purple, with 40 to 100 individual flowers in those. Flowering from January to March and confined to heathland, grassland and snow gum woodland on the Bogong High Plains of Victoria. It's a remarkable endemic of this state. Herpolion novae zelandii, also known as a sky lily, which is a little easier to say. It forms a turf-like mat of up to 2 metres in width, has tufted leaves in groups of 5 normally, which are 5 centimetres long by 1 to 4 mil wide. The flowers are subsessile or probably more sessile, white or pale blue in colour. It normally occurs in a moist peaty herb field and grasslands above 1,200 metres in Victoria. It's also found in New South Wales, Tasmania and New Zealand. It's a delightful little plant, which is quite common, but very cryptic when it's not in flower, as it just looks like a little grass and not obvious at all. In the bottom right-hand photo, that's one of my plants, and that's a very nice blue colour, which is lovely as well. This is Baronia algida, also known as the alpine baronia. A small shrub spreading to 60 centimetres in height with pink or white flowers. This can be found on shallow soils derived from igneous parent rock. The habitats include heath or open eucalyptus woodland. And this is found across Victoria, New South Wales and the ACT. Quite a delightful little shrub. Craspedia gracilis, commonly known here as billy buttons. It's a perennial herb with a flowering scape 8 to 65 centimetres high. Basal leaves, silvery with dense, long and oppressed hairs. The inflorescence is yellow and it's spherical to hemispherical, 1.2 to 5 centimetres in width, with between 25 and 100 florets. It flowers from December through into February, and it's common among grasses on creek flats and occasionally in eucalyptus woodland, which is here in the Alps and subalps of Victoria, New South Wales and Tasmania. Eucalyptus pauciflora subspecies Niphophila, commonly known as the snow gum. It's quite a unique species, probably needing no introduction. It's a small tree or mallee branching near the base to 7 metres tall. Branchlets, buds and fruits are all glaucous. There's that typical shaped white eucalyptus flower, and this particular subspecies only occurs at the upper limit of tree growth in the Victorian Alps, also in New South Wales and the ACT. They're a beautiful tree with an incredible bark, colours and branch tracery. And I always enjoy seeing them in the wild. And here's another old specimen, stunning to say the least. This could be many 100 years old, I'm not sure. This is part of the Bogong High Plains from Mount Mackay in Victoria. The Bogong High Plains, you might have heard me mention this name a few times. It's just a large section of the Victorian Alps, which is basically an undulated, elevated plain amongst the higher peaks in Victoria. It's quite a stunning landscape. You can see on the right-hand side there, there's some sort of whitish looking trees, which are dead trees, dead snow gums, quite possibly from fires a few years ago. Rhodanthe anthemoides, so known as the chamomile sunray. It's a perennial to 30 centimetres high, with linear lanceolate leaves. It has flowers that have involucral bracts, white in colour and spreading. Disc florets 30 to 40 per capitulum. It's a widespread species from the dry, dusty wheat fields of Western Victoria all the way up into the alpine herb fields, so very widespread. And it's also present in South Australia, excuse me, Queensland, New South Wales, ACT and Tasmania. And it's freely available in the horticulture trade, which is a good thing as well. Salmisia sericophila, also known as the silky snow daisy. It's fair to say that it's probably one of the, if not the prettiest salmisias in Australia. The leaves are 5 to 25 centimetres by 1 to 3.5 centimetres in size, with both surfaces very velvety with lustrous hairs. Underneath, they are denser and more silvery. This particular salmisia is very distinct from the others in Australia, as its leaves rot away under winter snow and are replaced annually. The flowering scape is to 6 to 45 centimetres in height, with flowers that are 4 to 6 centimetres in diameter, in that typical Asteraceae form. This can be seen flowering from December through to February. It is a critically endangered species, which is only endemic to Victoria and restricted to a portion of the Bogong High Plains between Mount Bogong and Mount Cope. It can form extensive carpets along rocky stream banks or tufted among boulders and rocks overhanging water. Also sometimes in sphagnum bogs and wet areas below late snow patches. I think you can see in that bottom right-hand photo that it's growing along a creek bank there. Scleranthus biflorus, a very common plant in Australia, also known as a twin flower Norwell. It's a dense cushion-like plant growing a few centimetres high by up to 40 centimetres wide or more. Leaves are small, 2 to 12 mil in length and 0.3 to 0.7 mil in width. Keeled, incurved and glabrous. The inflorescence is a pair of sessile flowers on a short peduncle, 1 to 4 centimetres in height, which you can sort of make out in the top right-hand photo. It's flowering from December to February, and it's widespread across Victoria from coastal areas all the way up into the Alps. And it's also in New South Wales, Queensland, the ACT, Tasmania, and New Zealand. Another plant that's widely available in horticulture as well. These are what is known as the Tawonga huts at Falls Creek. They are historic huts, and historic huts can be found right throughout the alpine high country of Australia. They were mostly built originally by graziers, bringing their cattle herds up to the high country to graze during summer, and also built by miners, and prospectors, hunters, different government bodies and skiers. Built huts to provide shelter and refuge in remote areas. At Tawonga huts here, the original huts were built back in 1888 by a cattleman. These no longer stand, but these ones here were built in the 1950s. They are now a lovely spot to camp while hiking or enjoy while day walking. I think we're situated here at about 1,800 metres in altitude. Goodenia heteracea, subspecies alpestris, also known as the ivy goodenia. This is a lovely prostrate plant. This can get up to 1 metre wide or thereabouts. Usually has smaller leaves. Oh, sorry, it's usually smaller than 1 metre wide, I should say. The leaves are broad, ovate to orbicular. Lower surface is whitish cottony. You can just see that in some of the leaves that are turned over, they're quite white underneath. It's from the small hairs. It's normally flowering from November to April, depending on its location, and yellow in colour. It's a widespread plant as well. It's found in Victoria, New South Wales, the ACT, and confined to the higher alpine regions, but as I said, it's quite common. Ranunculus victoriensis. It's a lovely buttercup, which is endemic to Victoria. Tufted leaves from the base, covered in hairs on both surfaces. They're 3-lobed to trifoliate with segments whole or further lobed, so it can be quite variable. There's an erect scape to 30 centimetres tall, with the flower heads being 1.5 to 3 centimetres wide, with 5 glossy yellow petals. Flowering from November through to January, and these can be seen on the Bogong High Plains in damp grassland and open heath habitats. Quite a stunning plant when seen en masse. I mentioned Mount Buffalo a little while ago, and this is a dramatic scene of some of its slopes on the edge of the plateau. It's comprised of granite, and it rises to 1,723 metres at its highest point. It's quite a dramatic plateau. Xerochrysum subungulatum, also known as the alpine everlasting. It's a perennial herb. It grows 5 to 45 centimetres high and able to form extensive colonies, which you can see there on the right-hand side, and makes for an amazing sight. Solitary flowers, 2 to 5 centimetres in diameter, yellow gold in colour. Starts flowering from January and goes all the way through to March, with mature flower heads which can persist into late April. and early May, giving it its common name, the alpine everlasting. The bracts, the petals are quite stiff and hard and papery. It's fairly common in moist alpine grasslands and herb fields in Victoria, New South Wales, ACT and Tasmania. Here it is again in mid-April on the Razorback track. Starting to fade, but still looking fantastic. This is Trachymean humulus subspecies breviscarpa. It's also known as the alpine trachymean. It's a mat-forming perennial with basal leaves, ovate or obovate in outline, with umbels with 25 to 50 flowers. White to pale mauve in colour. It is common in moist alpine and high subalpine grasslands and herb fields, frequently next to streams and seepage zones on the Bogong High Plains in Victoria and also Tasmania. This is Hovia montana from the pea family, Fabaceae. Spreading shrub to 50 centimetres with the outer stems decumbent. Narrow leaves, 3.5 centimetres long. And the flowers are deep mauve to a violet blue with a typical Fabaceae shape. Can be seen flowering from October into December. And in Victoria, it's found on the open alpine heath, grassy slopes and snow gum woodland and subalpine heath between 1200 and 1830 metres. It's also found in New South Wales and Tasmania. In the back of that right-hand photo, you can see a ski lift there. So this is on Mount Buller, which is one of the closer mountains to Melbourne. Here we have the main range in the Kosciusko National Park. So this photo was actually taken from the summit of Kosciusko. And we've got Mount Townsend, which is basically the highest bump just left centre of the photo, which is Australia's second highest peak at 2,209 metres. Again, you can see it's quite a rocky landscape. Asterolacea trimeloides, subspecies trimeloides, also known as the alpine starbush. It's a low spreading shrub, 50 centimetres high, but generally prostrate. Elliptic leaves or obovate with revolute margins. There's yellow solitary flowers, which are sessile and can be found flowering from November into January. It is found in the treeless alpine heath and grasslands in the Victorian Alps. What a lovely endemic. The alpine mint bush, Prostanthera cuneata. It's probably a well-known plant. It's a dense shrub to 1 metre high. It has very aromatic leaves. Obovate in shape. They're small and thick, 4 to 8 mil by 3 to 4 mil, so quite small. The flowers are crowded in the distal nodes, white in colour with violet, purple or reddish blotches or spots in the throat and tube. It's in flower from November into February. It is quite common and it can be dominant in closed alpine heathlands and shrublands or in snow gum at woodland between 1,500 and 2,000 metres, usually on rocky sites as well. It's also in Victoria and New South Wales. Quite a showy thing to see in flower. This is Pimelia alpina, the alpine rice flower. It's a prostrate or low subshrub, 15 centimetres high, with crowded leaves at ends of branches. The flowers are reddish pink or white during December to February. And it's found in alpine and subalpine grasslands, heathlands and woodlands in Victoria and New South Wales. It's another beautiful little alpine. Just got another view with Leucochrysum alpinum and Craspedia max greyi, looking towards Mount Townsend, which is that highest bump just left of centre. Just thought I'd put this in again because it's a lovely picture with an unusual coating of snow in February. This is at Mount Buffalo. This is showing you some of the plateau and the interesting granite rock formations. The prominent one there, just right of centre, is known as Cathedral Rock. Quite a remarkable landscape. This is Ranunculus gunnianus, also known as Gunn's alpine buttercup. A swoon-worthy plant if ever there was one. Grows to about 25 centimetres high with tufted leaves from the base, which are pinnately divided into numerous semi-terrate segments. Has a reddish scape, which bears flowers 2 to 5 centimetres in diameter, with glossy yellow petals, 5 to 13 in number, sometimes veined purple underneath. Flowering from October to February, locally common in the in damp grasslands, herb fields and bogs throughout the high Alps of Victoria, New South Wales and Tasmania. It's quite a gorgeous plant. This is Asaphila glacialis. We have 2 species of Asaphila in Australia, also known as the mountain celery. It's a herb 25 to 60 centimetres in height with stiff leaves and in fan-like layout. The flowers are an umbel with 7 to 16 umbellules per umbel, with individual flowers 2.5 to 3 mil in diameter. So basically lots of little flowers tightly packed together. This can be seen flowering from December into February, and it's locally common in tussock grasslands and tall herb fields in the alpine areas and higher subalpine areas. These were nearly wiped out due to cattle grazing, which thankfully now is completely banned. Apparently cattle love them. This is Montia australasica. It's a carpeting plant which is widespread across Victoria. And in the alpine areas, it's certainly diminished in size. It's found in seepage areas or bare gravelly ground in the Alps. It has white or pink flowers during October through January. It's quite a pretty little plant. It's also found in New South Wales and Tasmania. We've got another eyebright here, Euphrasia lasianthera. Similar to the last one, 10 to 35 centimetres in height, pale lilac, deep pink flowers, which have 3 to 5 conspicuous red-purple striations per lobe, and 2 yellow blotches at the base of the anterior filament. Can be seen flowering from November to February. It's endemic to Victoria around the Mount Buller region, on mountainsides, plateaus, summits, with habitats that are alpine herb fields, grassland and heathlands. Got another snow gum, Eucalyptus passiflora, subspecies Niphophila again. It's just an old gnarly snow gum, which I can look at for a long time. For me, one of the joys of going into the alpine areas here is to spend time with these remarkable trees. I'm sure they have lots of stories to tell. This is just a view from Mount Sterling, which is probably a bit lower than the mountains I normally visit in my home state, but it's still beautiful anyway. It gives you an idea of what the alpine country looks like. We've still got a few brachyscome and craspedia in flower, but not too much. It's a completely different mountain again, going back to Mount Buffalo compared to the last slide. You can see how rocky and interesting this is. These are all granite rocks. Stylidium armeria, subspecies armeria, commonly called trigger plants and well known. They're called trigger plants because of their pollination strategy, and it's achieved through the use of a sensitive trigger, which comprises the male and female reproductive organs fused into a floral column, which snaps forward quickly in response to touch. This covers the insect in pollen. And I'll just point out to you what the trigger is. So you can see here, this is the trigger here. Normally it's reflexed back underneath the petal here, and when an insect lands on the leaf, on the petals, it flips around and hits them on the back. What a lovely little thing. It's a perennial herb with leaves tufted at the base. Flowering scape can vary from 8 to 75 centimetres tall, with between 15 and 100 individual flowers. Deep pink magenta. Occasionally it can be white or pale pink, but rarely. These plants are very variable in shape and size, particularly the leaves, the flower size and the colour, and it's widespread across Victoria. In the Alps, it's normally found in snow gum woodlands, which you can see there. Also in this photo on the right-hand side, you can see a yellow low-growing shrub. This is Kunzia muliaria, also known as a yellow Kunzia, which looks like this. It's a prostrate to procumbent shrub, 30 centimetres high. There's yellow sessile flowers in a head-like terminal cluster, and it's normally flowering between November and January. It's common in heathland, mostly in rocky areas, and occasionally forms pure extensive stands. Also of note in this photo on the right-hand side is the cosmopolitan dandelion that has conquered the world at the front of that photo. Coprosma nivalis, this is a snow coprosma. It's a prostrate subshrub forming large mats, 60 to 100 centimetres in diameter. It's quite woody with sessile leaves crowded on the upper branchlets. The flowers are unisexual, sessile and terminal, and normally flowering between December and February. Later on, it ends up with an orange or a reddish drupe, and it can be found in rocky locations on the higher peaks in Victoria and New South Wales. It's not a particularly showy plant, but it's interesting just the same. Hotham alpinus, also known as the alpine everlasting. It's a compact shrub, normally 1 to 1.5 metres high and wide. It is very showy. Leaves are small, 4 to 13 mil in length by 2 to 3 mil in width. Glabrous above and densely cottony underneath. The inflorescence is hemispherical and about 25 millimetres in diameter, with capitula numbering 25 to 60 per head. It has a yellow to magenta colour. As it opens, before opening to a white flower, so it gives you a lovely two-toned contrasting effect there, which you can see on the right-hand side. Normally flowering during February and March, and it's restricted to the higher mountains in Victoria, New South Wales, and the ACT. This is another view overlooking the Bogong High Plains, giving you a bit of a sense of the size of it, with its many valleys. It's a lovely place to walk. This is on Mount Buller. There's some bushfires back here in 2006, which certainly wiped out some of the snow gums. And here you can see some of the regrowth. This photo was taken just late last year, so it's 16 years later since those fires, and the regrowth is only about 1 metre tall. This shows the harsh alpine environment. It takes a long time to recover after fire. If we've got fire frequency of 8 years or less in the same location, it is usually deadly to these trees and many more alpine plants. Also some species which will not come back after fire at all. So as you all know, Australia is a hot climate, and as it continues to warm up, we're getting more fires in the cooler Alps, and more deadly and becoming more of an issue. Here we have a couple of plants that are very similar, the same species, or the same genus, I should say. So Podolepsis robusta, bottom left and right, and Podolepsis laccianata. The only difference really being in their flower structure. The laccianata has 14 to 20 mil long. This I'm talking about the floret, sorry, with deep incisions into 3 to 5 lobes, whereas robusta floret, the ray florets, are only 9 to 13 mil long with 3 to 5 apical teeth. Both outstanding showy plants, with robusta normally found higher in the Victorian Alps, in alpine meadows and snow gum woodland. This is a marvellous species, Gentianella muelleriana, subspecies muelleriana. It's one of the latest alpines to flower in Victoria, starting in very late January or normally February and into April. It has dense terminal inflorescence, each with 3 to 12 flowers, the corolla being white with a bluish green to violet veins, which are quite prominent. This Victorian endemic can be found throughout the snowfields in moist grassland, bog margins and open heathland. It's a wonderful species to see flowering en masse, and it is an absolute favourite of mine. Here again, we've got Mount Buffalo in the distance, that raised plateau. And this is taken from the Razorback track from Mount Feathertop. The highest point of Buffalo is on the left-hand side. It's called the Horn. And then you've got a large sort of bump in the middle, which is called the Hump. The Hump provides a wonderful viewpoint of the whole Buffalo Plateau. And then when you're looking in the opposite direction from Buffalo back to Feathertop, you've got this scene. So from the very left, from the far left, you've got Mount Bogong. Then the next lot of snow-capped mountains is Mount Kosciusko, way up in New South Wales. I'll just point that out there. So that's Mount Kosciusko there. Then we've got, I can't remember what I've got here. Then we've got Falls Creek here with Mount Mackay. Then you go on to Mount Feathertop, which is this one here, and Hotham over here. So this was taken June last year, just as the snow season was starting. So you can see quite a nice blanket of snow across the Alps there. Now we're moving to Tasmania. It's not my home state, but I must say it is my favourite state. And I don't really have enough superlatives to describe this incredible place. Needless to say, it's the most mountainous island in the world, even though they are shorter than the mainland, with Mount Ossa topping out at 1,617 metres. They are somewhat steeper and more rugged than the mainland. Of course, there are always exceptions. Tasmania does have an extensive flattish elevated plateau, also known as the Central Highlands. Alpine areas in Tasmania vary a lot, with the tree line starting at or ending at 600 metres in the southwest, and moving up to 1,200 metres in the northeast. This is all due to its location and maritime climate which heavily influences the state. Also, it is very windy due to it being located in the roaring 40s, which brings all sorts of weather to bear on the island, with rainfall on the west coast being anywhere from 1.5 to 3 metres annually, with some of the ranges in the southwest having been known to receive up to 4 to 5 metres of rainfall. Whereas the east coast is far drier due to the mountains across the middle of the state causing a rain shadow. Interestingly, due to its maritime climate, snow does not last long on the ground in Tasmania, whereas on the mainland it will probably last for a lot longer. In Tasmania, the snow lies much shorter, but then snow is more likely at any time of the year in Tasmania. And also Tasmania was heavily glaciated, with the last glaciers disappearing about 10,000 years ago, which has left behind a unique wilderness for us to enjoy today. In this photo is Mount Ossa, which we came across back when we were doing the overland track in 2018, I think, or 2019, which is the highest point in Tasmania. It's a bit deceptive. The highest point is not those two columns at the front, but it's a flat plateau behind the back of those two peaks, which sits at 1,617 metres. There's some other high points there. You can see there, Legs Tor, Giblin Peak, Mount Pelion West, Barn Bluff, and Cradle Mountain, which is a very well-known destination. As noted there's about 450 alpine species. So let's get into some of them. Before we do that, we'll just show you this picture here from the top of the Needles range, looking to the Thumbs range. The Thumbs top out at an altitude of 1,204 metres, and all those surrounding peaks around here in that same region. So as you can see, the mountains are not high in Tasmania, but they are very rugged and steep. These ranges are all on the northern edge of the Southwest National Park, which is an immense wilderness covering roughly 6,183 square kilometres, all virtually inaccessible except by foot or air. This also joins up to the Franklin Gordon Wild Rivers National Park. Again, that's about 4,500 square kilometres, with both of these parks helping to make up the Tasmanian Wilderness World Heritage Area, comprising some 15,800 square kilometres in area, which equates to about 25% of Tasmania. It's an area of pristine, rugged wilderness, virtually untouched by humans. Now some plants. So this is Herbaceae procumbens. It's a delightful prostrate plant, to 30 centimetres wide or a bit more. Leaves 5 to 20 millimetres long, linear, elliptic in shape, with the flowers having 5 golden yellow petals. In Tasmania, it's found from coastal heathlands all the way up into the subalpine areas at about 1,000 metres. Habitats include deciduous heath, coniferous heath, bolster heath, and alpine sedgelands. This is Knowltonia crassifolia, also known as the mountain anemone, a beautiful perennial herb with flowers, with leaves in a basal rosette. They're thick and divided into 3 coarsely toothed leaflets. Flowering on stems 8 to 20 centimetres tall, and white in colour, and normally seen during summer. This endemic is found in the Western Mountains at about 1,000 metres in habitats including deciduous heath, coniferous, bolster and alpine sedgelands. Boronia citriodora, lemon-scented shrub. Oh, sorry, I should say lemon-scented Boronia. A small shrub, 0.5 to 1 metres by 0.5 to 1.5, slightly spreading, pinnate crowded leaves, producing a strong lemon aroma when crushed, with flowers with 4 petals, white to pink in colour. This can be found in the alpine heath and coniferous heath and alpine sedgelands in the eastern and central mountains. Blandfordia punicea, commonly known as the Christmas bells, a tussock forming plant with leaves up to 1 metre long, thick, finely toothed on the margins and with a prominent midrib. And they're quite often reddish in colour, which you can sort of see there on the right-hand photo. Has a stout flowering stem to 1 metre, bearing up to 20 bell-shaped flowers, red in colour on the outside, yellow inside. This endemic can be found in the alpine heath, coniferous heath, and deciduous heath in the Western Mountains. This is Microcacris tetragona, also known as the strawberry pine. This is probably well known in cultivation, this plant. It's a spreading prostrate podocarp with overlapping leaves which are oppressed to the stem, causing branches to appear square. There's separate male and female plants, with the female cones being terminal, solitary, and turning scarlet and succulent-like when ripe. This endemic dominates coniferous heath in the central and western mountains. It also has a fossil history dating back 66 million years. It's considered to be part of the Gondwanan flora, which included Antarctica. Pollen of this has been found in South America, India, South Africa, and Antarctica. This paleoendemic is now only found in the mountains of Tasmania. It's a lovely thing. This is on the top of the Needles Range in southwest Tasmania. It's an impressive ridgeline with needle-like protrusions jutting into the sky. There's a lot of mountains in Tasmania that consist of dolerite, but here we have a quartzite range, which is more common in the west and southern areas. In the distance in the back, you've got Mountfield West and Mountfield East in the Mountfield National Park, which is a unique and beautiful area. The Athrotaxis cuprossoides, it's another one of Tasmania's incredible endemics, the pencil pine. It's not a pine, but another podocarp, which is related to the Californian redwoods. Even though this shot is washed out and the timing and lighting is all wrong, it still gives a wonderful scene with these podocarps gracing the aptly named Artist Pool with Cradle Mountain looming in the background. Here are some more examples of pencil pines. The one on the left is at Pine Lake, which is a well-known spot for pencil pines. And the one on the right is an ice-laden example at Mountfield National Park, which you can see has been blown to the right by the winds. The leaves are 2 to 4 mil long and wide and strongly overlapping with small woody cones, 1.2 to 1.5 centimetres in diameter. These trees dominate coniferous heath on the central plateau and westwards from here. They are lovely things indeed. I forgot to say too that they are very old growing, so a lot of these trees will grow in excess of 1,000 years old. Here we have Little Horn and Cradle Mountain. In the Cradle Mountain Lakes and Clare National Park, there are plenty of lovely scenes like this to be seen. Of note here are the Athrotaxis capricites, the pencil pines, which you can see in their pyramidal shape. And then the lighter green foliage in between them, dotted around, is Nothofagus gunnii, the deciduous beech, which turned golden yellow in autumn. We'll have more on that one a little bit later. Yet another podocarp, Perisphaera. The drooping pine, it's a shrub 1.5 to 3 metres tall and 1.1 to 4 metres wide. The leaves are small, dense and pressed like the other pines and spiraling. There's male and female cones on separate plants, often found around streams and lakes in the central, western and southwest mountains between 1,300 and 1,400 metres. What a lovely podocarp indeed. Its cones on the left there, you can see male and female. Athrotaxis laxifolia. This is a natural hybrid between the two other Athrotaxis in Tasmania, capricites and Salaginoides. So that's pencil pine and the kingbilly pine. It grows between 6 to 20 metres and 3 to 10 metres wide, with 6 mm long leaves, so slightly bigger leaves than the pencil pine. And they have pointed tips and they clasp the branches. Mature cones are about the same, 1.5 centimetres in diameter. And like the other pines too, they may be only present at 5-year intervals or longer. It's found in areas where both its parents grow, usually between 700 and 1,200 metres altitude, in damp depressions along streams and lake edges. This one is located on the Tarn Shelf at Mount Field National Park and has decided a long time ago to take a nap in one of the many tarns here. It's another view on the Needles range, just showing the interesting uplifted layered quartzite, which is quite beautiful. Riccia scoparia, also known as scoparia. It's a much branched shrub, probably needing no introduction. Varies from 0.5 to 3 metres tall, 1.1 to 1.2 metres wide or wider, and it's usually smaller at altitude. The leaves are green and rigid, 3 to 6 centimetres long and tapering to a sharp point, which many hikers know about. Also overlapping around the stems, the flower stems is a terminal spike, 4 to 12 centimetres in length, occurs in a range of colours from white to yellow, pink to red and orange. Petals are fused into what's known as a calyptra, which are removed by snow skinks and birds to get to the nectar, and thus exposing their reproductive parts of the flower for pollination. The wind also helps remove the calyptra as well. Summer flowering, December to February. This Tasmanian endemic is widespread and common on almost every mountain in Tasmania. Habitats include alpine heath, coniferous heath, bolster heath, field mark, and bogs. And I'll just show you the calyptra. So if you're looking here, it's these oval shaped round sections. And once removed, you can see the reproductive organs here. And this is where the nectar is located here, the base there. Okay, moving on. Dracophyllum milliganii, also known as Milligan's mountain heath. It's a small shrub, 15 to 25 centimetres tall, with each branch appearing as an apparent separate individual. Leaves are narrow and up to 15 centimetres long, curving downwards and curling up at the ends. Crowded and forming what looks like a rosette on each branch. This incredible endemic is a common codominant with the incredible, beautiful Isophysis tasmanica, which we'll see later. In alpine heath and sedlands in saddles of the Western Mountains. Also in deciduous heath, coniferous heath, and balsam heath in these same areas. These were flowering profusely on the Needles Range in the southwest of Tasmania, and it is an incredible species. And talking about incredible species, this is Isophysis tasmanica, also known as Huardia or the Tasmanian purple star. It's a tufted perennial with erect blue-green leaves arrayed in fans. Flowers are dark purple magenta, terminal and solitary on an erect scape just above the foliage. There is an occasional yellow flower that appears here and there amongst the populations. This beautiful endemic can be found from sea level on peaty swamps in the southwest up to exposed saddles and rock outcrops of the west and central highlands to 1,300 metres. Again, these beauties were seen on the Needles Range at about 960 metres. And a characteristic feature of this monotypic genus is its superior ovary, which places it as one of the earliest lineages of Iridoideae, the iris family, branching some 66 million years ago. And when you look at the phylogeny tree, and from hypothesis from several citations, it is more than likely that the Iridaceae originated in Antarctica, Australasia, and radiated from here to the rest of the world, leaving Australasia poor in Iridoideae species. Either way, we've been left with this beautiful plant, which is incredible. Here we have Helichrysum pumilum varieties spathulatum. It's also known as the Western everlasting, a herb with rosettes of foliage, spatulate leaves, only 1 to 3 centimetres long, the grey upper surface and light grey underneath. Flowers are pinkish in bud, opening to white papery inflorescence on a white woolly scape, only 5 to 10 centimetres tall. The phylarias around the disc florid are white, but can have streaks of pink through them as well, which as you can see there. It's endemic to Tasmania and found in the Western Mountains in alpine heath and also in alpine heath habitats. And it's usually on thin skeletal soils. Glycina alpina, the alpine coral fern. It forms dense patches and it's dominant in alpine sedgeland, bogs and coniferous heath, also balsam heath. It's common in the eastern and central mountains, growing to about 25 centimetres high and has much divided fronds, which are quite striking. This is also found in New Zealand. The mountain we're looking at here is Barn Bluff, which is well known as well. It's taken from Lake Windermere on the overland track. Of note in the foreground is Glycina alpina, which is the dusty orange coloured ground cover. As you can see, it's quite widespread. Further in the distance, just before the lake edge, are patches of button grass, Gymnoceras ferrocephalus. That's a very widespread species across Tasmania and synonymous with bushwalkers as well. Gaultheria hispida. This lovely Tasmanian endemic can be found in wet forest and alpine woodlands. It's an erect branch shrub, 2 metres tall in protected areas, smaller in alpine settings. The young branches are covered with rigid reddish bristles. The leaves are ellipse to lance-shaped, and the small white urn-shaped flowers in terminal clusters or axillary groups. The fruit is a reddish capsule, which is enclosed by the white fleshy sepals, giving you that berry-looking appearance on the left-hand photo. Riccia pandanifolia, probably needing no introduction at all, also known as Pandani, is one of the weirdest heath plants around in this part of the world. An erect shrub growing anywhere from 2 to 12 metres tall, very long leaves to 1 metre or more, which are strap-like and tapering to a point. Also strongly curved downwards and then upwards near the older tips. Dead and aging leaves persist, covering the trunk. The inflorescence emerges from the leaf axis at the top in panicles up to 25 centimetres in length, normally white or pink in colour. It is mostly unbranched, apart from a lowland species which does branch, and also if ones in the alpine areas are damaged, they normally branch as well. This incredible, bizarre Tasmanian endemic can be found in deciduous heath, coniferous heath, heathlands, alpine sedge lands and rainforests in the central and western mountains. One more for good measure. This is a wonderful site at Lake Dobson, the Mountain Field National Park. I'm not sure what a group of pandanis would be called, but I could put forward a rustling of pandani. To me, it's the sound they make as you pass through them, which sounds like someone's rustling, like something is rustling. Also, my wife says it sounds like someone whispering to you. Maybe it should be a whispering of pandani. But anyway, it's a beautiful, bizarre plant. Mountain raspberry, or native strawberry, Rubus gunnianus. It's a rosette-forming herb connected by trailing stems. Dark green, shiny leaves, creamy white flowers, nearly subsessile. Sweet, fleshy red fruit. It's another Tasmanian endemic, which is widespread and common in all alpine vegetation types. This is another Euartia, Euartia meredithiae, also known as the rusty cushion plant. It's very close branches tightly packed together, causing it to grow in the shape of a cushion plant. Silvery green leaves with rusty coloured hairs on them. Small white papery flowers, subsessile or up to about 3 centimetres high above the foliage. This beautiful endemic is found on montane vegetation or in bolster heath communities in the western and central alpine areas. It's another stunning plant. This is in the Western Arthurs Range. It's the unmistakable jagged ridge line in this area in southwest Tasmania. It's a wild landscape with probably one of the, if not the hardest walking tracks in Australia, with the full traverse of the Western Arthurs probably taking, I know people run it and do all sorts of silly things, but a normal walk through here would be probably 5 days, 5 to 6 days. Epicris serpulifolia, the alpine heath. It's a much branched or spreading shrub to 1 metre high. The leaves are crowded and at right angles to the stem, 2 to 6 mil in length. They are blade shaped and tapering to a blunt point. Flowers are white and crowded at the ends of the branches, giving it quite a nice show when it's in full flower. This is endemic to Tasmania. It's widespread in many habitats throughout the mountains. Barrier rubioides, also known as barrier. It's a wiry, scrambling shrub in many forms, ranging from prostrate up to 2 metres tall or more. Can form extensive thickets at lower altitudes, but higher up it's usually smaller. This one being prostrate. It has opposite leaves in groups of 3, giving the appearance of a whorl of 6 leaves. Flowers in leaf axils, white or pink, slightly bell-shaped and hanging down normally. and very widespread. It's also found in Victoria, New South Wales and South Australia. Sprengelia incarnata, pink swamp heath. It's an erect, sparsely branched shrub to 1 metre or a small cushion-like plant with many forms in between. Overlapping leaves, sheathing completely around the stems and tapering to a hard point. Very similar to the Riccia foliage. Pink flowers, the terminal on branches and quite showy. It's very common in the alpine habitats, Tasmania, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, and New Zealand. One of the many tarns to be found at Mountfield National Park. They are also scattered across the central highlands and alpine areas where there are thousands of these little lakes. Remnants from past glaciation events make for a stunning landscape. Fringing this particular tarn are carpets of Astelia alpina variety alpina, which we'll cover a bit later on. We have another eyebright, Euphrasia gibbsii. Broadleaf eyebright is a common herb across the alpine areas of Tasmania. There are at least 5 subspecies, possibly more of this very variable species. The flowers are white with purple striations and yellow dots. The prostrate stems at first then become vertical, 20 to 30 centimetres tall. Quite a showy plant. Looking at Barn Bluff here, which is looking quite ominous on the Cradle Mountain Plateau. As you can see, this area has been heavily glaciated. On the side of that mountain, you can see dolerite boulder fields, screes. And of note here, the altitude of this plateau is about 1,000 metres. And the wind is very strong across this area, causing the plant habitat to be very low and not much stands up. It looks sparse, but it's quite a beautiful area, rich in all sorts of flora. Archeria comberii, also known as the comb heath. It's a small rare shrub which can be easily overlooked, but upon closer inspection it oozes class and sophistication. Even the rough woody branched appearance has a beauty about it. The flowers are pink and tubular in shape on short stalks, emerging from the upper leaf axils. The leaves are only 3 to 4 mil long and nearly horizontal from the branch, rounded with a pointed tip, and they're also arranged in whorls around the stems. The abaxial surface is mostly green, with the adaxaxial surface, which is the top side, mostly red, with a margin also being red. This red coloration on the leaves is a characteristic of alpine species, which is caused by an increase of anthocyanin, which absorbs ultraviolet light and converts this into heat energy, which warms the plant earlier in the growing season. This endemic is found in deciduous heath, bolster heath, alpine sedge land, and coniferous heath in the western mountains of Tasmania. Tasmanian snow gum, Eucalyptus coccifera, a tree up to 15 metres tall, but can be 5 metres or shorter in exposed conditions. Smooth grey and cream coloured bark makes this a lovely tree. Normally found in subalpine habitats above 800 metres in the central areas and southern areas of Tasmania. Here we can see this endemic standing in a bed of Astelia. Nothofagus gunnii, the deciduous beech or tanglefoot as it's also known, can grow to 8 metres tall, but it's normally found as a tangled shrub 1 to 3 metres tall. Tanglefoot comes from the meaning that you're trying to push through these, grow over these is nearly impossible and will tangle your feet up, hence its name. The leaves are alternate, simple, ovate in outline with rounded teeth on the margin, and the laminate is also crinkled in appearance. It's a bright glossy green in colour, and then in autumn it turns to a golden yellow and occasional red. This is the only cold winter deciduous plant native to Australia. You get the male and female flowers on the same tree, and they're inconspicuous. But you can see one there in the bottom right-hand corner. And this is restricted to high altitude, high rainfall areas with no fire activity in the central and western mountains. A common thing to do in autumn is to go and see what's known as the turning of the fagus. This spectacular sight which us Australians don't get to see with our native flora normally. Here we have a couple of snow gums standing out on the Tarn Shelf at Mountfield National Park, Eucalyptus coccifera. It's quite a stunning trees. In the background, going up the hillside, you can see those green trees. It's probably Athrotaxis capricoides, the pencil pine. This is another plant that probably doesn't need any introduction. This is the Tilapia, the Tasmanian waratah. It's a dense upright shrub, much loved and admired, and rightly so. Lance-shaped leaves, 5 to 12 centimetres in length, with terminal flowers, hemispherical red in colour, and occasionally a yellow one can be seen. Contains between 10 and 35 individual flowers. It's mostly a shrub to 3 metres tall, or as a tree up to 10 metres. It's found in the central, southern and western areas of Tasmania, on moist acidic soils, in wet sclerophyll forest or subalpine scrub from 600 to 1200 metres. This Tasmanian endemic is another one of those old plants which probably predates the splitting of Gondwana over 60 million years ago. So another view of the incredible Western Arthurs, just showing how jagged and rugged this area can be. And living in those areas is this plant, Guium talbotianum, the Tasmanian snow rose. It's a perennial herb endemic to southwest Tasmania, where it's confined to those high mountain rocky areas like the Western Arthurs and Mount Anne. It's covered in fine hairs. Also leaves on long stems, they're kidney-shaped, 5 to 10 centimetres in diameter, and wrinkled on the adaxial surface. Large white flower, 4 to 5 centimetres in diameter, on long peduncles during December into March. It shelters in cracks and crevices provided by those rocky outcrops. This is a rare species which faces several threats, including the obvious one, climate is warming and shrinking its habitat, the threat of fire, which increases due to the aforementioned threat, and hiking, trampling from increased human presence in this area. We tend to love things to death. Salmisia saxifraga, it's also known as the snow daisy. It's a dainty little salmisia for grey-green rosetta foliage, crowded leaves, and they're overlapping. Single white flower, probably 2.5 to 3 centimetres in diameter, and it's only found at high altitudes in Tasmania. What a showy little plant with interesting leaves. This is Xerochryzum milliganii, also known as Milligan's everlasting. a rosette herb with strongly overlapping leaves, all coming to a defined point. Single flowers, terminal and solitary, with spreading white papery bracts. It can have a flush of red underneath as well. It's another endemic which is found in the western and central mountains in a range of habitat types. Eucalyptus vernicosa. This is the varnish gum. This is the smallest growing eucalyptus, normally to about 1 metre or tall as a shrub, or it can get to 4 metres in protected areas. Has smooth greyish brown bark with egg-shaped leaves to glossy green. The flower buds in groups of 3 in the leaf axils with that typical eucalyptus type flower. It's also white in colour. As I said, it's considered to be the smallest eucalyptus, and this Tasmanian endemic is only found in the alpine regions in the west and southwest between 700 and 1350 metres. Mostly on peaty soils on top of quartzite or sandstone bedrock, and it's usually found above the tree line where it will be growing as a shrub. These are on the Needle Range, where a recent fire in 2019 nearly burned them all out. They are now starting to regrow from their lignotubers, which is fantastic. Of note also, Tasmania has the smallest eucalyptus, and the tallest eucalyptus, Eucalyptus regnans, which grows to over 100 metres. This is the incredible Lake Oberon in the Western Arthurs, which was made famous by Peter Dombrovskis, a renowned Australian photographer portraying Tasmania beautifully. Again, just such a rugged and interesting landscape. Quite different from the mainland. Quite a few cushion plants in Tasmania. This one is known as the Western cushion plant, or also Donatia novae zelandii. It's a bright green, hard cushion herb, sessile leaves 5 to 6 mil in length with a pointed apex. And at the leaf base, it has dense tufts of white hair, 2 to 3 mil in length. The white flowers are solitary and sessile, 5 to 6 mil in diameter. And it's a dominant of bolster heath, usually mixed with other cushion species in the western and central mountains. Also seen in New Zealand. Here at Cradle Mountain, we can see it with Pterygopappus lawrencei, which is the grey coloured little patches amongst it. And as you can see too, it can form extensive cushions. Anopteris glandulosus, also known as native laurel. It's a beautiful shrub or small tree endemic to the south and southwest of Tassie, usually found in the moist understory of temperate rainforests and wet sclerophyll forests from sea level all the way up to 1,200 metres in the mountains. 2 to 4 metres in height as a shrub, or can get to 10 metres as a tree, depending on its location. Large leaves, 7 to 17 centimetres long, dark green and glossy, with the flowers in a terminal raceme, which is about 17 centimetres long. Bell-shaped, white and pink in flower. It's a lovely plant. We've seen the Athrotaxis cuprosaudes already, but here we have some detail of its trunks. These examples were on the Tarn Shelf at Mount Field National Park. Simply incredible. Here we have a view of Mount Ossa, which is the bump on the left-hand side, sorry, and Mount Pelion West, which is on the right-hand side. In front of it, we have a sea of button grass. And this photo was taken on the overland track back in 2019, which is a great multi-day walk between 60 and 80 kilometres across some of Tasmania's pristine wilderness. This is on the overland track as well, on the approach to Mount Ossa, which you can see in the background amongst the gums. Here we've got a lovely grove of Pandani. Simply beautiful scene. It's quite bizarre to see these things growing amongst gum trees. They look more like a tropical plant than an alpine plant. Here we have a Sprangelia minima, the Ericaceae family. It's a lovely little Tasmanian endemic. It's a small sub-shrub that grows in alpine cushion plants. It's mostly prostrate. The leaves are overlapping, sheathing around the stems and ending in a pointed tip, only about 3 to 5 mil in length and 1 to 2 mil wide. Flowers are small too, only 2 to 5 millimeter in diameter, white and nearly subsessile. Flowers during December and January, and it's quite a lovely little species. Also of note in the picture in the middle is the Drosera arcturii, which is the alpine sundew. And I'll just point that out for you. It's here, here, over here, here, and around here. Also some young ones here. These are carnivorous, and they have a rosette shape to them with erect leaves, which are spatulate shaped, normally red in colour and covered with glandular hairs, which you can see there, that one at the front. There's a white flower on vertical stem, which is taller than the foliage, and it grows in bogs, tarns, seepages, sphagnum bogs, bolster heath, where it's found on top of cushion plants like this. Also can be seen in New South Wales, Victoria, and New Zealand. So another well-known Tasmanian endemic, Bellandina montana, also known as the mountain rocket. It's a classic Tasmanian alpine, low-growing shrub, anywhere from 10 centimetres to 1 metre or thereabouts. It has thick leaves, which are very variable, 1 to 6 centimetres in length, and they're usually in 3 broad lobes. Flowers are arranged in a terminal raceme on short stems above the foliage, white and pale pink in colour. These flowers are followed by egg-shaped bright red or yellow fruit sacs, which you can see there, bottom left-hand photo. These are normally found on nutrient-poor soils, mostly derived from dolerite, but also quartzite and basalt. It's widespread in all vegetation types above 1,000 metres. Phylogenetic studies of this endemic place it as basal to the rest of Proteaceae, meaning it is one of the earliest offshoots. In fact, it's considered to have diverged from all other members of Proteaceae first. A beautiful plant. Another beautiful species is Ericaceae alpina. It's known as a short candle heath. It's a small shrub with spreading branches, with each branch end congested with leaves, looking like a rosette, lance-shaped, 10 centimetres long, and recurving strongly, with the old leaves persisting as well, which you can see in some of that right-hand photo. The inflorescence is erect and terminal, with many small flowers starting off red and fading to cream. This endemic can be found in the southwest mountains in alpine sedgelands, alpine heath, and bolster heath communities. Here we're looking at Mount Geryon and the Acropolis. The Acropolis is on the right, with a coating of autumn snow, and you can just make out in the front there Nothofagus gunnii with a slight tinge of yellow to it. I mentioned the Astelia a couple of times. Astelia alpina, variety alpina, also known as pineapple grass. I can only assume its common name comes from its leaves looking like the top of a pineapple, and grass maybe because it forms extensive mats. Other than that, I'm lost as why, as it's not a pineapple nor a grass. But we all know common names can be a bit different. It's a mat forming perennial with leaves 6 to 40 centimetres long, up to 3 centimetres wide, green or grey-green above and grey silvery below. Has a female inflorescence which is usually hidden in between the leaves, with the male inflorescence being a little bit more prominent, white-green in colour. Also has red berries after flowering, and they're normally nestled at the base of the plant. It's widespread in Tasmania and found on just about every mountain. Phylacne colensoi, so known as a yellow cushion plant. It's a yellowish green hard cushion forming mats about 10 centimetres high and spreading up to 1 metre or more. Short erect stems are tightly packed together with leaves only 3 to 4 mil long, which are sessile and ending in a blunt tip. They are also crowded and closely pressed against the stems. Flowers are virtually sessile, about 4 mil in diameter. White in colour with 5 to 6 spreading lobes. And it's normally flowering from December into January. It's found on the high peaks of the central and western mountains where it's dominant in bolster heath, mostly on sloping areas with prolonged snow lie. This species is also in New Zealand. Dracophylla minimum, also known as the heath cushion plant. It's a bright green, reddish green hard cushion plant forming large mats. The leaves are bright green, sessile with a broad sheathing base and finishing in a reddish tip. They're only about 4 to 5 mil in length. The flowers are solitary, sessile or nearly so, and tubular in shape with 5 spreading lobes and about 5 mil in diameter. Colour is white. This endemic is widespread in bolster heath communities, usually growing together with a mix of cushion species forming a cushion mosaic. And more on this a bit later. It can be found in the central and western mountains above 1,200 metres. This is one of my favourite cushion plants. Well, they all are really. In the photo there with the foliage, close up the foliage, you can just see a bit of the reddish tint to the leaves. And when you look at the right-hand photo, you can see how it is quite reddish across the whole cushion in parts. Here we have Pterygopappus lawrencei, also known as the sage cushion plant. It's an easily identified cushion because of its sage green colouring. It's a soft grey-green tufted cushion herb. Leaves about 4 mil in length. They're greyish green. They are very hairy and forming tight round hexagons. As you can see a close up of the foliage there, lower left. There's small whitish flowers which protrude from the centre of these leaf hexagons. They're not really showy, but they're just interesting nevertheless, quite tiny. This incredible endemic can be found on most mountains, usually on thin, peaty soils from heavily eroded dolerite, and it's mostly found in cushion mosaics with the other cushions mentioned. Rarely as a monoculture, even though it looks like it might be a monoculture here, there is other species still growing amongst it. Quite a beautiful plant, this one, and actually does quite well for me at lowland altitudes. Abrotatella fosteroides, the eastern cushion plant. It's a hard, bright green cushion plant, which can be a metre across or more. Again, the leaves are small, only 3 to 4 mil in length, sessile and crowded, and sheathing from the base to a pointed tip. And this one has a soft, hairy-like protrusion from the tip, which makes it easily identified from some of the others. They're not very easily identified, the cushion plants. Very hard to tell unless you get up very close and personal to them. Has a solitary tiny white flower and very short stems that protrude just above the leaves. This Tasmanian endemic is dominant in Bolster Heath in eastern, central and western mountains, but most common in the eastern mountains. Can form large colonies by itself, but the western and central populations are normally found in cushion mosaic in high altitude saddles. And it's another incredible cushion plant. Here's another view of the Acropolis on the left and Mount Geryon. This was taken from Mount Massive. Takes a bit of work to get to, requiring off-track hiking, but so worth it. Yet another part of Tasmania that's beautiful. Well, to be frank, all of Tasmania is beautiful. It's probably the most easy mountain to access and probably one of the most popular ones that's visited, apart from Mount Field. This is Cradle Mountain and Little Horn, reflecting in Dove Lake at Cradle Mountain, Lake St Clair National Park. Top of Cradle Mountain tops out at, I think it's about 1545 metres. Bolster Heath communities and Cushion Heath mosaics. You may have noticed I've mentioned this habitat a few times. It refers to a habitat which comprises a complex mix of species growing together, forming an undulating mosaic of different colours and textures. In any given square metre, there can be up to 30 plants and various species. Extensive mats can be formed and nearly cover several hectares in area. They are quite unique. This is some more views of this remarkable community. These are at Newdigate Pass in Mountfield National Park on a not so balmy day, summer's day in December. They have endless form and texture, and sadly most hikers pass by these without even realise how remarkable and rare these communities are. They are just a patchwork of many species. Also at Mountfield, at Newdigate Pass, we have a Bolster Heath string fen community. Well, what is that? It is of conservation significance due to the terraced pools and tarns here that are extremely rare and unusual. The relationship between vegetation, peat and substrate has produced these terraces that are dynamic in nature. In short, there are a series of vegetation dams which are formed from cushion plants which have altered the water flowing through this gently sloping landscape. Hopefully I've got a little video here. Hopefully this will work and be able to show you some of this Bolster Heath string fen community. It's better to see it in a little video than via photo. Let's see how we go. As you can see, it was a beautiful summer's day. Lots of sunshine and no rain. Well, it was actually snowing in parts. So. Here we can see some more terracing that's occurring in that left-hand photo from the top right of it to the bottom right, to the bottom left, sorry. You can see the different levels there. of this type of community. The smaller photo there on the right-hand side may show you how a dam wall may start out in this situation, where you've got cushion plants growing on a substrate, dying and then repeating, building up a peaty layer and maybe slowly changing the water flow through it. Anyway, it's a remarkable environment that fascinates me. I've got one more video here just to show this remarkable area. Hopefully this one works as well. Really just shows the water flowing through this landscape. We've got some patches of snow there. Cushion mosaic heath. And we finish here with a lovely cushion mosaic heath with Pterygia pappus lawrencii and Dracophylla minimum and many other species. Well, it's nearly about it from me. Just like to have a few acknowledgements before I finish up, and these are very necessary. Just want to thank my ever patient and loving wife, Janet, in the left-hand photo there, who's imitating this tree, which she thought looked like an owl. Have to thank our youngest son, Tully, who gets dragged along on these walks occasionally. And also, I'd like to thank a few people here with some photos that I've used with permission, particularly Louise Fairfax. I highly recommend you have a look at her website, www.natureloverswalks.com, all walks in Tasmania with beautiful photography. Also some photos that have been used with permission from Fiona Walsh, particularly of the Aboriginella fosteroides, and also some photos that I've used from David Noble, www.david-noble.net of the Western Arthurs. Again, a site I'd highly recommend anyone to have a look at to see some incredible imagery of Tasmania. There was a couple of photos that I used from iNaturalist as well, and their names are there too. Chris Close, Mick Fitzgerald, Patrice Baxter, Nick Fitzgerald, Casey, Alpine Flora of Australia, and Matt Berger, Sheriff Woody, PCT. The rest of my photos were mine, and I certainly appreciate people giving me the rights to use some of their photos. So I say thank you. I've got some contacts there if anyone wants to reach out to me.